Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Joshua. I met Joshua through mutual friends. His story is amazing. He is definitely someone that has come through a lot. He had some childhood trauma. Trigger warning, we do talk about sexual assault and suicide attempts. He is someone that gives a tremendous amount of hope if you're struggling through something that's hard or struggling through something that you think you can never get out of. This episode will make you think very differently about your life. I know you guys are going to love it. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Joshua to the podcast.
Hello, everyone.
I'm so excited that you're here.
Yeah, I'm pumped. This is a great opportunity. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and you know each other through mutual friends, and it's such an
Yes.
honor to have you on my show. So where are you coming in from?
I'm in Sarasota, Florida. And where I'm coming in from is a broad question because I can answer it from my mental state, my physical state. So we'll see where I'm coming in from at the end of this.
That was a very existential answer. I love it. So we are going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And before we jumped on, I told you this is actually my favorite quote of all time. So this quote, it means a lot to me. The quote is about lightning, and I actually have a lightning tattoo on my side.
That's
I
cool.
used this quote at my college graduation in my speech, and I also have it in my office on the wall.
So I am very privileged.
You are.
Yes, I feel it. Thank you.
So the quote goes, "Your life is like a flash of lightning in a dark night sky, a brief time of tremendous potential," by B. Alan Wallace. What does that quote mean to you?
It's interesting because for me, it revolves around time a little bit, right? This idea that a flash can encompass your entire life, and then as quickly as it comes, it goes away. And there's a part of me that relates to that because of my personal story and my journey and how close I came to not waking up. So that is a really interesting quote. I'd like us to think of our lives maybe as broader and longer than a stroke of lightning. But yeah, I think it's a great quote, and it definitely appeals to me based on my personal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so B. Alan Wallace is a Tibetan Buddhist, an author, a philosopher, and a lot of his work is on consciousness. So this quote sticks with me because I'm constantly in my mind asking, am I living up to my potential? Am I living up to my God-given potential? And when I was in my alcohol use disorder, I was not. I was probably living maybe 40%. And then at the end, probably 1% of my
Right, I'm right
potential.
there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, when I remove the alcohol, I'm slowly over time fulfilling my potential. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of
No,
years to work on yourself. But also the whole idea of like lightning doesn't strike twice, right? Like in the same spot. So like you and your purpose and your potential are extremely unique.
yes, yeah, I love that aspect of it. And it's interesting because it is such a quick moment in time. The quote really captures how brief we are here, and in the grand scheme of things, sitting on tens of thousands, millions of years of history, and just knowing you're here for a blip is humbling. And when you kind of get as close as at least I did with my drinking and where I ended up with it, it would have been even briefer. And that's honestly just a little scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that I see potential as a modulation. It's not necessarily you peak and then you drop off. I think we have different potentialities at different points in our life. And so I see it as more of a wave, maybe not as consistent as that, peaking and rising and falling all in the same cadence. But I definitely think that there are those peaks in your life where you're at your highest aptitude and you really are at your potential. And then inevitably life throws you curveballs and you get set back and you make decisions and other people make decisions for you. And and then you realize, wow, this the amount of potential that I thought I had, let alone if I'm living the full amount of my potential. So for me, that's yeah, no, I love that quote. It's a good one.
Yeah, you bring up a really important discussion though, like our different potentials, right? So there's academic potential, relationship potential, athletic potential. Yeah, I mean that could be broken down into so many parts, and also the idea that yeah, we are cosmic blink, but also our lives matter so much. The dichotomy of it all.
Yeah, exactly. The dichotomy. I talk about this phrase in relationship to drinking. I don't think I coined it. I heard it somewhere, but it's what I want but don't need, and it's what I need but don't want. And it is kind of that conundrum of your relationship to life and how contradictory or seemingly contradictory it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to hear your story. I actually don't know
Yeah.
your story, so it'll be the first time I'm hearing it. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's interesting about that is I've given people in my network, right, friends and family, carte blanche to share my story. Because there's a large part of me now, particularly even as I get further away from when I was drinking. I'll be 2 years in September, sober in September, so very exciting. But the further I get away from that stopping point, I don't know. The more I think back on it and battle with regret, to be honest with you. But I'll talk about that. So drinking's been a part of my life since I was 20. Never had a drink before that, and it was always kind of social and recreational. And then I fell into depression. I learned through my own personal therapy that a lot of value that I imbue in myself is related to my career, and not necessarily it's not healthy. And I've spent a lot of time working with my therapist to heal those issues, and even going further back to when I was a child and things that happened to me when I was young. I was molested several times, and so for me, there's a lot of self worth issue. And in my career, I fell into this doldrum, this dark hole where the only companion that I seemed to find solace in was the bottom of a bottle. And there were warning signs. I mean, there were some signs. I just didn't heed them. And I'm a family man, so I have a wife and kids. And there was a lot of shock and awe around my behavior with my drinking. And that wasn't enough to discourage me, even to the point where I got a DUI. I'll just be direct. I was drinking and picked up my daughter from aftercare and flipped the car and totaled it. And that's a lot. That was a lot. That was a lot. And we were both fine. It's a miracle. I mean, genuinely, I think I've been touched a few times in my life by something bigger than myself. And it really felt like that moment was an awakening. But it was a false positive. It was a false start. I battled. I tried to do it myself and quit. And there was a point in time where I was alive and I was getting back to where my potential would have been. And and then I got full of myself, and I stopped being vigilant, and I started thinking that I could control it again. And I had taken this great job with an Italian company, and was traveling for them, and doing a lot of really interesting and exciting things. But I still didn't feel fulfilled. I was chasing, if that makes sense. I was chasing the next deal, the next opportunity, the next car, the next thing I could buy. I never was full. I was always hungry for more. And even after the DUI and crashing that car, I turned right around and got another identical car, just a different color. And it's just so kind of disgusting to mention, but I got to the point where I was joking about it, where I would tell people I didn't like the color of the first car, so I decided to total it. And I thought, oh, this is tongue in cheek and this is funny and irreverent, but really, it gave you a glimpse into where my mental state was, that these things had not really sunk in, and that as close and awful as that was to hurting somebody, it didn't make an impact. So on this slide, I would like to call it, escalated as I was getting closer and closer to this trip to Italy for work. And I was sneaking alcohol and hiding it in places and thinking I was balancing it, because there was no world where I could drink openly in front of my family or anybody else for that matter, because I told them I was a recovering alcoholic and that I wasn't drinking, and that, well, all the while I was faking breathalyzers and pretending my wife bought me a breathalyzer so she could test me at will. And even those things I'd figured out how to circumvent and manipulate so that I could still keep drinking. And as I got closer to that travel event, it got worse and worse. And my wife had gone out of town, and my daughter had caught me drinking and shared that with her the morning that I was going to fly out. Yeah, I just remember slamming down a wedding band on the butcher's block, and because she had confronted me, and packed my own bags, and actually I drove to the store and drank in the parking lot of a gas station and drove back home, and then I got on an airplane and I didn't stop drinking, and I kept drinking, and I was even traveling with a couple of work partners, and it was so bad that I stood up on the international flight and fell over, and so there were all these things that weren't normal, that weren't acceptable, that should have been, red flags, and they were red flags. It's just I was too arrogant and too empty, and had too much fight in me to give up on trying to control it and manage it. And I got to Italy and I was hungover and could barely get my shit together. And I show up, went to dinner and left dinner with my workmates early because I was so drunk. Woke up the next day with a with a hangover, went to the office, and I could tell the mood in the office was very off and very different. And I had some suspicions that I might get let go. And for in hindsight, I don't think they ever at the moment suspected that I'd been drinking. They just thought I was kind of callous and flippant and unserious. So there was a calculated point where I was in the lobby that I thought, okay, I'm going to get let go. And so went through some training and did not feel good, and told them that I was sick and I needed to go back to the hotel. And they thought I had COVID. And the Italians were really harmed by COVID because of their aging population and their healthcare system. And went back to the hotel room. When my COVID test came back negative, they were like, let's get you better. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, tomorrow rolled around and I'd been drinking and kept drinking. And I drank so much that that a buddy of mine um called the Italian 911, and ambulance shows up and took me to the hospital. IVs and basically time and patience. And it's interesting because Italy really doesn't see addiction as a disease. They see it as conscious will. This is just a decision you're making. So the punishments are very different. So I was discharged to my bosses and was given a termination letter later that night. And I went down to the bar and they'd shut me off, and went back to my room, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was thinking, well, I can probably walk to the store and buy some more alcohol. And then it dawned on me that I had actually brought some gifts for the Italian team, of which included three $250 bottles of bourbon, and I had them custom engraved for them, and was going to be just this sweet gesture. But I had this elation, the dopamine hit. I have alcohol in my room. I'd forgotten I'd packed it in my luggage, and started drinking. And this is where it does get a little fuzzy. My wife swears that I went to the hospital 3 times. I just remember 2. But it was so bad that I'd given up. I thought my marriage was over. I had obviously lost my job. I didn't have any control over this thing that was eating me up. It was killing me. And so I gave up, and I started drinking more, and broke the bottle, blood everywhere, cut myself. I had a bottle of trazodone, and decided to take the trazodone, and just end it. It felt really hard. It's really hard. And if you've not been on that side of things, it's really difficult to understand how hard it is. But obviously, I'm here. So it wasn't it. It just so happened that one of my employees was a nurse, and came to check on me with my wife, who had heard from him that I'd gone to the hospital and not done well. So she took a flight to Italy at the drop of a hat, and she and he walked through the door of my hotel and found me dead. I didn't have a pulse. They started performing CPR. They got a pulse back, and went to the hospital. And the Italians were basically like, if this happens again, you're going to go to jail. Not treatment, not help. You were going to go to jail. And my wife was with me, and so I stopped drinking. In that moment, I stopped drinking. And it wasn't this stroke of lightning, to use that, right? Where the lights all of a sudden went on and I saw the miracle for what it was, and I realized how close I had gotten to death. It was more of just I'd been sober long enough to realize that I had something more to give. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was more there. And so I flew back with her and I went into a 30-day treatment program, inpatient. The best, worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, all of this is the best, worst thing to ever happen to me, to be honest with you. I have regret for other people and their experiences with me. But as far as my personal journey goes, I've gotten to a place where I very much embrace it. It's part of who I am. And I see life so differently now that I'm, in a weird, maybe strange way, I'm happy it happened, because I how I was living before was really unhealthy. And I don't just mean the drinking; I mean the entire mental state and physical state. And I obviously had had a lot of trauma from being a child that I had to deal with. So really, the therapy that I received at treatment was the start of something. It lit the fuse, and I met 7 guys who, and they came to the facility came to tell us that it was very rare that 7 of us would come together in such a unique way. And every night we smoked cigars and talked and shared from all different walks of life. And we named our group. We still chat to this day, almost 2 years later. We still text with one another. Out of the 7, I'm the only one to not relapse. Interesting. That's the hard part because I made it and they didn't. And there's something difficult about that, to be honest with you, to ask yourself, why me? And not have a good answer, right? Why did I live? Why did I escape the DUI? Why did my daughter escape the DUI without issue, without a single scratch? Why'd my wife come through that door in that perfect moment? Had they been 3 minutes late, I would have been dead. 2 minutes later. But the fact that they walked through the door in that moment saved my life. And I think you could spend an eternity asking why. And I've really given up trying to answer that question, why me? But still, it raises its head every now and then when you see people that you really love and you trust and they're struggling. And you got to wonder, like, what makes me special? And what made me have this eye opening journey? And it really was that. I would love to tell people that if, again, it was an awakening of some sort, but it really has just been a long journey of doing the difficult, uncomfortable work and just fighting. This is only the second time I've shared this story because the first time was I went back to treatment as a speaker. And this is my first time sharing it publicly. So it's putting it together in the right order to tell it can be a challenge, but it's a journey. And it was the hard work that I put in. But again, I asked myself, why me? Because I've not had a single craving, not one. And I can't explain it. I can't, it's not for not being around it. It's not for it not being on commercials and in your face every day and going to restaurants where they ask you what you want to drink and your friends and family still drink around you. But I've not had a single craving in, and I find actually some comfort in that. There's something permanent about it. And there's confidence that I take from the fact that there's permanency in not having a craving. And not that it can't happen again, but I'm vigilant every day. I'm vigilant. And that's something that I've imparted to other people, that a part of my concern and problem was how tight I was gripping everything and looking for control when you can't have it, and escaping through alcohol. Once I stopped fighting and gripping and working so hard to chase irrelevant things, that's when the light came on and I realized that everything to live for, everything to stop drinking for, I already had, and I didn't need to chase it anymore. And I didn't need drinking anymore. But it took a lot of work. And I think, at least in my group, those 7 guys, there's a lot of effort, but there's still struggles to actually commit. And that's like really commit and just say I'm going to do something for the rest of my life. And that's the commitment I've made to myself, and I've honored it to this point. So it's kind of the long and short of it. I can provide color context. That's the story.
Wow. Extremely powerful. Very, very powerful story. I got teared up in a few parts. I mean, we could sit here and discuss all the reasons why you of the 7, and I know you probably have a little bit of survivor's guilt surrounding that. Is it more recovery capital? Is it you had a deeper suffering? Is it you had a second chance on life? I mean, there's so many things it could have been. Is it a culmination of all of them? Is it even you have a bigger purpose here on earth that you haven't fulfilled yet? There's so much it could be.
And that's interesting because I really have turned my attention to the present and what I'm doing every day to better myself. And I firmly believe now in a way that I never, anything else I said before while drinking was lip service. But now it feels very optimistic. I feel full of potential and not living it to its maximum capacity yet. But I enjoy getting up every day and saying my gratitude prayers, meditating, realizing that the most important work that can be done is on myself, that actually spreads love and compassion and gratitude to those around you. And by me taking care of myself, I think in a way it's repaired relationships around me and made them better in the process.
I have some questions about your story.
Please.
So you had mentioned this 30-day inpatient rehab. I love an inpatient rehab for the right type of patient. What did you do after that? Like when you got out, how did you set yourself up for success?
Great question. I tried meetings. I could not get into it, just couldn't find a connection there. When I left rehab, I held a Sunday meeting unrelated to AA with those 7 guys, or the 6 guys plus me, and held our meeting for about a year every Sunday, and then it started trailing off, and now it's just text. That support network was gigantic, was absolutely gigantic, and but I probably didn't do any of the right things when I left rehab, honestly. Like, I was just so focused on getting back to my family, and I was so focused in repairing my relationship with my wife. She never gave up on me, and, she talks about her why. Her why for not giving up on me was the realization that I was trapped, and it wasn't me. It wasn't me in this space, and she protected that space for long enough that I could come back into it as who I used to be.
To bring it back to the quote, she saw the potential in you.
She did. Yeah, she saw that crack of lightning.
She sounds like an amazing person.
She is, undeniably the strongest person I've ever met, undeniably, and, there was, coming out of Italy and then coming out of rehab, this constant reminder that she didn't give up on me, so I couldn't give up on her, and I was committed to my marriage, and I was committed to not letting her give up on it, and, that's what I fought for every day. I fought to be a great dad and a great husband and to save a marriage when she didn't want one, and, I didn't give up, and we're still married. I think we're going on 22 years, so she has seen a lot and, been there for me in ways that I can't even imagine.
How has your relationship with her and your children changed in recovery?
I'm much more present, much more involved. I was involved before. I even when I was drinking, I was always involved, but I wasn't mentally involved. I'd show up, I'd be there, I'd be anxious, I'd be impatient. When can I get another drink? When can I leave? Can I run to the store real quick and have a drink in a parking lot? I mean, you name it, I was completely preoccupied. So although I was physically there, I wasn't mentally. And since I've really worked to condition myself to be mentally present, setting down my phone, listening, reprioritizing. I will say this, with my wife, there's never been a better point in our marriage, ever. We talk to each other in ways that we didn't before. We're more sensitive to each other. Our energy better aligns. And then with my children, there's unconditional love there, but I think that they take pride in the fact that I survived and I battled and I didn't give up and I believed in myself. And we have fantastic relationships. One's in college, one's in high school, one's in middle school. And we eat dinner together when they're all in town every night. I cook dinner 5 nights a week. I've made it a commitment to keep this family no matter what.
When you remove the alcohol, you remove so much, or you allow your brain to have so much more power and cognition to think about other things and do other things and show up in your life in other ways. When you're drinking, especially when you get to a certain severity of alcohol use disorder, it's all you think about. It encompasses
Mhm.
all of your brain. Everything
Yes.
revolves around the alcohol. So now you have all this time and energy to put towards other things. And I love to see you put it towards like your family and your goals and all of that. Like that's beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, it's been reinvigorating. I've found new inspiration in life through gratitude, to be honest. I was never grateful because it was never good enough, because I was never good enough. And because I was never good enough, these things in my life were never good enough, and I kept chasing and I kept burying all of that with drinking. And I have this fantastic therapist. She said, "Go find a picture of you in elementary school and put it on your mirror." She wrote down "I am enough" on like a little postcard. And she said, "I want you to put this in your mirror and I want you to see it and remember it." And it's still on my mirror. And I look at it every day and I remember what little Josh was all about. And it reminds me that I am a good person and that I am enough and that I don't need things to feel fulfilled, because everything that provides fulfillment's already in my life. And that's not to say that I have a great career. I love my job. It's the most purposeful I've felt in a decade, but that's a job, and it's not the sustenance that drives me every day.
It's cool. I do the same thing. I have like the background picture on my phone is like a little picture of me skiing when I was 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I have another one in my room of me running. But yeah, I mean, I like to look at that like I've become someone, and you have too, that my
Mhm.
little self would be proud of.
Exactly, and I think, as I was saying, I had some trauma in my childhood that was never resolved properly, and so it really did take therapy to work through that, but it was this feeling of never being good enough, and, it's crazy to know what it feels like to be good enough. because for so long I didn't. And it's like this wild, invigorating experience to say I am enough. And in everything that I need to feel this way, I already have. I don't have to go out and look for it. And that's really rewarding. It's really rewarding.
Sobriety and recovery gives you that opportunity because when you're in active addiction, whatever you're addicted to, you
Hmm.
make all these promises to yourself and you constantly break those promises. And you also act very inauthentically to who you are at your core. So you have no
Yeah.
self trust. You have no self integrity. You have no self worth because to yourself, you're a flake, you know? So when you
Yep.
get away from that time away from the substance, you can rebuild yourself so much stronger. And it's really like you had mentioned, thankful for what you had gone through because it's given you this second chance on life full of purpose, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that purpose is so important for me now. I didn't have a purpose before, and I really found that purpose. And it really, for me, it really is about improving my relationships. How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better dad, a better son? And working every day to have better relationships. And that there's something for me, there's something exciting about that. I really have come to appreciate people and the situations that they're in and allowed me to meet them where they're at. And it feels really, really good to do that.
When you look at like the studies of what people say on their deathbed that actually mattered, what you're talking about is what actually matters at the end of your life,
Right.
the relationships you've built and the impact you've had on other people.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that people ask me, "Did I see a light or did I feel something?" No, no, just a complete awakening that I had a second chance, and I just had to do it. There was no choice anymore, and I kind of joked with myself that if I can't even try and kill myself right, there has to be something more for me. There has to be, and I still think that, optimistically, I still think that there's this unfulfilled potential that I have and that there's really great things coming for me. But at the same time, I temper that with knowing that again, I have everything I need. And that's exciting to have things that aren't forced. There's synchronicity to them. I definitely hear and feel the world differently now and see signs in places I didn't see before and vibe with people in ways that I've not vibed with before. And to your point, when you're drinking, it's very performative because you can't show people you've been drinking. So you're always acting sober, but really, you're smashed. And that bleeds into everything else because now you're just showing up because you have to, which is a performance. You're not showing up because you're mentally present and want to be there. So I didn't realize the toll all of those performances were putting on me.
You bring up like two really good points. One is that the alcohol numbs the intuition and your
Hmm.
energy, right? So your intuition, like how you're able to perceive people and kind of like know before you know. And then the energy is like we're all made of energy. We all have this like a field of energy that exudes from us. And when you're drinking, that energy is dull and dark. And when you're sober and doing the right things, it's bright and it attracts
Vibrant.
people. Vibrant. Yes. Yeah.
I found purpose in my career working with a company that is all about energy and all about health and wellness through energy. And again, the synchronicity in life. It just feels like this is supposed to happen. And again, rather than looking back and woe is me, everything I went through, I really have embraced it as part of a hard journey. It's hard finishing the hike at the top of a mountain, but those last 500 feet, last half mile, those are the most important steps you're going to take because you're so close and you don't give up. And so there's a part of it for me where I realize I'm on this journey and I just have to keep taking one step at a time, but I've made it to the backside of that mountain now. It feels that way. It feels like I'm going down now as opposed to going up.
Yeah. Over the last 2 years, what's like the most important thing you've learned about yourself?
I mean, there's a couple, but definitely that I'm enough. I mean, just to not to hammer the point, but that really was a big moment for me. That was really that changed everything for me. Realizing that I was enough. That I didn't have to be perfect, that I didn't have to please other people, that I didn't have to sacrifice myself and my integrity for other people's pleasure. And so I am enough is very powerful for me. And then the relationships, as I mentioned, just they're so valuable and they're so unique and they're so dynamic. And I've really come to appreciate all of the relationships in my life, good, bad, or indifferent. It's somebody that you just make conversation with at the grocery store, or it's your mom or dad. I've just come to appreciate all of those interactions in a way I didn't before.
Yeah. The relationship thing is hard. I mean, sometimes whoever's having the issue, they work on themselves, they don't stay in their victimhood, and you can see those relationships thrive. But sometimes the
Hmm.
foundation is so cracked that it's hard to rebuild. It's impossible to rebuild if it's cracked all the way to its core. But I love to see you and your wife succeed. I think that's so special. I love to see those types of stories.
And this is why I'm reticent to share some of this story because I'm very empathetic to people who didn't have my outcome. And that goes back to that why me? Why am I so lucky? And so I'm very, very sensitive to that. And particularly with my group of guys, very sensitive to where they're at in their journey. But that's how I see it, a journey. And if the foundation is cracked beyond repair, the only person that's going to be able to repair that is the person who laid that foundation. And the biggest piece of advice I've given people that are close to me that are struggling, you have to do the work. You got to be willing to do the work. You got to go to therapy if you can. Go see a psychiatrist if you need to bridge your life with an SSRI or a different drug, then that's what you got to do. You have to relinquish all ego and you have to be willing to do everything and anything. And there are some people who can't do that. And that's hard and that's really sad that they can't see their own worth to be able to do those things. But once you make a commitment to do those things, it is such a positive feedback loop. It's so fulfilling. It's so rewarding to see how immediate your life, because 2 years isn't a long time. I've been drinking a lot longer than I've been sober, but it's amazing how dramatic things can change simply by looking at the world differently, simply by changing your perspective. But you have to be willing to do that. There has to be an internal desire to roll up your sleeves and do the difficult work. And I picked that up. There was a recovering addict that I watched a TED talk with, and he talked about that. But surrendering the outcome as well. I used to obsess about outcomes because that's where the payoff was. That was the dopamine hit, right? Was the outcome. And I've just stopped worrying about the future. I've stopped worrying about outcomes because if I take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself. And there's all these coined adages and whatnot, but in a lot of them, they do ring true to me.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like removing the alcohol is step one, but it's just step one. You've got to do
Yes.
so many other things after that. And that's can be discussed for, multiple podcast episodes, the inner work, the therapy, the co-occurring addictions, the cross diagnoses. There's so much there, but you're right. I love how you said you got to put the work in. Yeah. You got to
Yeah.
check your ego and you got to work on yourself.
Yeah, and I think that those that are still addicted that say they want to stop, the addiction isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem is their ego and the decisions that are being driven by that. And if they were to resolve those issues, I think that the addiction, while still very difficult to deal with, becomes a lot easier and much more manageable. And I found that just for me, through my personal experience, that the minute I started solving's relative, but the minute I started getting closure, probably a better word, finally getting closure on all these things that happened to me growing up, well, I didn't even need to think about anything else. I didn't need to think about masking it, band-aiding it, numbing out, escaping. I didn't want any of those things anymore. I wanted to feel everything to its fullest potential. I wanted to feel, but it took that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole debate of, alcohol really isn't the problem. It was the ineffective solution. Or you could sub that word alcohol for drug, sex,
Right.
porn, whatever. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, for me, my issue was probably some underlying generalized anxiety disorder and a very turbulent marriage combined with postpartum anxiety. I mean, those were my
Yeah.
things that I had to fix because eventually, if I didn't necessarily not fix them, but work on them, I would have just
Yeah.
swapped out alcohol with another substance to numb out.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the trap is that alcohol is I'm sure there are other drugs and addictions that are probably harder to break, and hard is relative. It's in the eyes of the beholder. But it took a long time for me. Again, I've had no cravings, but you see it everywhere and you're inundated with it. That I can see it being the, if not one of the most difficult things to stop
Yeah. Well, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. It's at baby
everywhere.
showers. It's at, everywhere you look, gas stations, the 7-Eleven, you know.
I smell hand sanitizer and I immediately think vodka.
Yeah.
And I mean, that smell
Hmm.
correlates in my brain, right? And I go, wow. God, what have I done? Like, how conditioned have I made myself? That should smell like hand sanitizer, but to me, it smells like vodka, which is that's its own thing.
Yeah. You had mentioned not having cravings. I think that's awesome. I similarly didn't like I had a surrender moment, not like your story, but surrender where I dropped to my knees and it was like a switch was flipped after that.
Hmm.
Hasn't been
Yeah.
easy, but the cravings, thank goodness, I've not really dealt with that. So what would you say over the last 2 years has been the hardest challenge?
Consistency in the vigilance, like making sure that you don't fall asleep at the wheel and reminding yourself through for me it's meditation, it's prayer, it's habits that I've formed throughout my day-to-day routine. But the hardest thing is slipping on supporting yourself because you think you get to a point after you support yourself so much that like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I feel great. But that's not being vigilant. And you have to remind yourself of what it took to get you where you are, and you have to keep practicing. It's a constant practice. And I actually find like a lot of love in that. It's a lot of love in it. But it's consistency.
Yeah, I love that. I love consistency. I heard a quote the other day. It was like consistency over intensity. That
Yeah.
sticks with me.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's funny. But yeah, intensity, consistency implies the long term. And that's the journey I'm on.
Yeah. I'm an athlete, and so intensity is like my thing, right? But you're right. The more consistently you show up, the better the results. But I have one more question before we do our lightning round. If
Cool.
you could just say your biggest blessing over this last 2 years, your second chance at life, what has been the biggest blessing around that?
My children and wife's forgiveness. There's so much in that. I mean, we could spend a couple more sessions probably talking about that. But the fact that I've been forgiven has empowered me to continue and do that practice, that consistency, that hard work every day.
That's beautiful. I love that answer. Well, we have made it to the lightning round of our show.
Let's go.
I asked the same 5 questions to each guest. They're fun get to know you questions because my listeners get very invested in you, especially after they hear your story.
Okay, I love it.
So the first question is you're given 3 options and you have to choose one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
Yeah. Caveats, I've already skydived,
Okay.
shark dive.
Okay. All right. That's on the
I'm
list.
nervous putting my body into a rubber band. Even though I jumped out of an airplane. I don't know how to describe it. I had more trust in the parachute than I do a rubber band.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I agree with that. Two, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Oh my gosh. I'm such a music head. I listen to music every day that it changes. I would say Love Supreme by Coltrane.
Okay. All right. I love it. All right. Number three, what is your favorite Disney movie?
Oh my god. Disney? I do have children, so I've seen almost all the Disney movies. I'm not going to factor in Marvel because that doesn't really count, even though it's Disney. I really loved Moana.
Okay. For number
I know it's
one,
crazy. Yeah, the
Moana one.
first one,
Yeah.
not the second one.
Second one was bad. I know.
Garbage. Sorry.
And I wonder if it's because one was so good that two just seemed bad. I don't know.
I don't know either, but the first one I really, really enjoyed, and I've been able to watch it a few more times against my will, but I still watched it and enjoyed it.
Music is so good.
Yeah.
Number four, what is something you're obsessed with?
Cooking.
Okay.
I absolutely love cooking. So as I mentioned, I make 5 meals a week for the most part from scratch. And it's my passion. It's my hobby. There was a point in time where I wanted to be a chef. And then I looked at the hours and I actually look back on that jokingly and think, thank God I didn't become a chef because if I ended up drinking the way I did in a white collar job, I couldn't imagine how I'd end up as a chef.
Yeah, it's very prevalent in that arena.
It is, but I love food, love cooking.
That's awesome. All right, last question, number five. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom. It's internal for me. So I'm going to answer this from like a personal perspective. Freedom is when the noise in my head shuts off and there's no expectations and there's no need to perform and there's nothing I need to deliver for anybody. A smile, a handshake, a report, there's nothing to deliver. And I can sit there and be still with myself, just quiet and still. That's freedom.
I love that. That's so funny that you say that because I just got back from a 5-day sober retreat in Montana. And my favorite seminar that we did was finding our inner stillness.
Oh, there you go.
I am someone that's very hyper and go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And so I needed to learn this act, like how to find our inner stillness. And what's so cool about that is that you can access it anytime. It's always available.
That's right there.
Yeah, it's basically learning to breathe, like box breathe, and then
Hmm.
that deep meditation and that calmness, that consciousness that's inside of you
Hmm.
that's always there and like
Yeah.
accessing that calmness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, that
Yeah, I agree with you. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Your story is extremely powerful. I mean, you really were given a second chance. I know that you are going to just go out there and achieve all of your goals. I mean, really, your story, it changes people's lives. Like listening to your story, I mean, the listeners aren't going to track with everything. They haven't been through everything that you've gone through. However, you give such a sense of hope. Like your life can be one way and it can be completely transformed. And this is how I did it.
and I'm telling you, that is a fact. And if you're willing to do the work, it can happen. And I really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. Yes. All
Thank
right,
you.
honey. It was so nice meeting you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Great getting to chat with you and share this story. I do hope that it touches some people. That's the point of sharing it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Someone had recommended The Five People You Meet in Heaven. Have you ever read that book?
No, is it good?
Well, so basically, the whole premise is the people in heaven that they meet, he didn't even know them, but he impacted their lives in such a way. And so you don't even
Mm.
know who you're impacting with the stories that, you share about your life.
Well, I got to thank you for platforming me and giving me an opportunity to share it. This is the first time I've done it. So it's a privilege to sit with you and chat about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, honey. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.